Good morning, Year 5. So, Miss David produced an absolutely amazing book browse video last week where she was in her classroom and she had some special guests. However, this week you've got me and no special guests. I tried to get Ross to come and help me do a book browse lesson, but he wasn't having any of it. So I'm going to go through the questions talking to you, and you guys can follow along at home. So just like Miss David did last week, you're going to need to have read the text, which is called Venus Flytrap, and I am going to read you a question. You're then going to pause the video, have a go at answering it in your workbooks, and then we're going to press play again so that you can hear me discuss the answer with you. So in my pre-reading, I need to think about what a Venus flytrap is. So I know, just from having a read of this first paragraph, that it is some form of plant. Now, the type of plant tells me down here, it says these plants trap and digest living creatures. That's a really important piece of information for me. Now I'm also going to go through and underline any words that I'm not quite sure of. So straight away, I've got the words here: carnivorous plants, passively, prey. I think I remember from year 3 doing habitats, but I'm not quite sure. What else is there? Some more over this side maybe. Oh, exoskeleton is quite a tricky word. And I think that will probably be it. So what I've also done now is I've put some thought bubbles next to the things that I think are going to help me answer the questions. Now I haven't actually even looked at the questions yet, but I'm just using my knowledge of what I've seen in previous book browse questions, like the ones I did in class, to think about things that I think might be important. So I know that knowing what type of plant a Venus flytrap is going to be probably really, really important, and also how it works is going to be quite important. So underline that, as well as my words that I wasn't quite sure about, so I can look them up in the dictionary. Here is your first question. It says, number 1, use the text to explain what these words mean. So you've got 1 mark for each of these, getting each of these correct. So no dictionaries, you are using the text only. Pause the video now and have a go at answering that question. Now, going back to my pre-reading, I have actually underlined what I think is the answer to this already. And this is where my thought bubbles have come in really, really useful. The sentence says, it belongs to a group of plants known as carnivorous plants. They all have one thing in common. These plants trap and digest living creatures. Now, just because the text says they trap living creatures, think about what the word carnivorous might mean. So if it's carnivorous, the plant is trapping, why might it be trapping the living creature? What is the point of that? How does that make it carnivorous? It means that the plant is able to trap the animal or the small creature and able to digest it. So for my answer, that is what I'm going to write. I'm going to write that it digests and eats small living things, such as animals. So carnivorous means to trap and digest living creatures, just like the text told me earlier. My next word for 1 mark is passively. Again, that was a word that I underlined earlier, and it says that most of these plants trap their prey passively. This means that they never move but wait for their prey to land on them and either become stuck to the leaves or fall into a trap. Okay, for my second mark, a plant that never moves but waits for the prey to become stuck or fall into a trap. So there are your first 2 marks for these questions. Your next question is find 2 words or phrases which tell you that the Venus flytrap moves quickly when something lands on it, and it's 2 marks. Pause the video and have a go now. So this question has already given me some clues as to what it is asking me to do. It is saying to me it's 2 marks and it's asking me to find 2 words. So that's 2 separate words in different parts of the text, or 2 phrases. So that can be a group of words. These questions tend to throw a lot of people and tend to mean they get the answers wrong, even though they are very capable of finding the 2 words or the 2 phrases, or a word and a phrase. It can be, as long as there's 2 parts, that is fine. I have had this conversation with Victoria so many times, and I'm sure Miss David has with Shakespeare too. Something really, really important that you have to remember is that if the question is asking you for 2, you must write 2. If you write 3, it is going to be wrong. If you write 1, it's going to be wrong. It's going to be a waste of time, isn't it? You won't get the marks that you deserve for all of the hard work that you've put in. When I look at my text, I'm looking for anything that tells me the plant moves quickly. Now, the first one that grabbed my eye was its steel trap snaps shut. And the word snap suggests to me it goes really quickly. And then next to it is a group of words, a phrase, quicker than the blink of an eye. That tells me also that it's very quick because the blink of an eye happens very quickly. The word snap also appears down here somewhere, and it snaps shut, trapping whatever is inside. So you should have written something like the word snap and quicker than the blink of an eye suggests that the plant moves quickly. If this is a 3-mark question, I would go on to explain how some of these words show me it moves quickly, but it's only a 2-mark question. Therefore, we've achieved both of those marks. Number 3, look at the second column. What does the phrase close round it like jaws of a digger suggest about the plant's teeth? This is also a 2-mark question. Pause the video and have a go now. In my text, I've found the section, it says about close around it like the jaws of a digger. Now I need to think about what I know about the jaws of a digger. Now I know that once those jaws have closed around something on a digger, so for example like sand or dirt or dust, it would mean that they would be really impossible to open up again and be gripping onto it really, really tightly. So there's 2 points there. So in my answer, I have written the phrase suggests that the jaws of the plant are closed around the insect tightly. They are also impossible to open again. Now I think I need to add more detail because it's a 2-mark question. So I'm actually going to add a sentence onto that now. So on the bottom I've added, this tells me that the plant holds onto the insect and will not let it go. It finishes off my answer nicely and it gets me those 2 marks for that question. Number 4 says, explain why you think the hairs on the leaves are called trigger hairs. You may use a dictionary to look up the word trigger. You may also use Google if you haven't got a dictionary to hand, and it's worth 1 mark. So pause the video now and have a go at answering that question. So I haven't got a dictionary to hand, so I've used the internet too. It says trigger means a small device that releases a spring or catch and sets off a mechanism. So for example, firing a gun, he pulled the trigger. Or the verb is to cause a device to function. So it means, for example, that the burglars fled empty-handed after triggering the alarm. For example, setting it off or activating it. So again, I underlined trigger hairs earlier on during my pre-reading. Now, thinking back to those definitions, I need to think about what I know so far. So the leaves on the Venus flytrap form the trap. On the leaves are some small trigger hairs. Now, if I'm thinking back to that definition about triggering the burglar alarm, when a burglar steps in, they set off the alarm, so I think that it means it sets off the fly trap to snatch it up. Oops. So I've written, I think that the word trigger hairs means that it causes the plants to snap shut when something touches them, a bit like when a burglar triggers a burglar alarm. Once the tiny insects crawl onto the leaves of that plant, the little hairs tell the plant to snap close. With this question, I also started with I think, because the question asked me to explain why you think, so it's your opinion, it's what you think. The final question says, number 5, how does the writer emphasise the brutality of the Venus flytrap? So you may use a dictionary to look up the word brutality, as it's quite a tricky word. So I know that the word brutality means how severe it is, how brutal the plant can be, how sort of angry the plant can be. The other word that's quite tricky was emphasise. So how does the writer emphasise, which means how does the writer make it really clear that it is really brutal and that the Venus flytrap is quite a nasty plant. Basically, you wouldn't want to get your fingers stuck in it. Now this question is worth 3 marks, which tells me I'm going to have to do quite a lot of explaining. The way I approached this question was I read through the text again and I made a note of anything that I thought made the plant sound really brutal. So I came up with jaws of a digger, steel trap, snaps shut, and opportunity to escape. Now this is a 3-mark question, so I know that I should probably have 3 of these points. So I'm going to actually combine these 2 together because actually jaws of a digger and it snaps shut are very similar. You could have also linked steel trap and jaws of a digger together. It doesn't matter if you did that differently. So I started off by saying the writer emphasises the brutality of the Venus flytrap by using specific vocabulary. Firstly, the author says the jaws of a digger. Now that is a quote exactly from the text. So I would use quote marks to show that. And snaps shut. Again, another quote exactly from the text. This shows the plant closes very quickly and compares it to a heavy piece of machinery like a digger. The author also uses steel trap, again, more evidence, to show how it would be difficult to open the plants once it is closed. Furthermore, my comma, the author uses opportunity to escape. My last quote, that's 3 pieces of evidence, again to show the prey would be eaten once the plant is closed. I actually think I need to add another sentence onto that to say all of these things show me that they are brutal because they are very sharp actions, very strong, and make it impossible for the creature to escape. So that's Book Browse done for today. So well done if you answered all those questions correctly and if you use a lot of detail, particularly in that 3-mark question. It was quite tricky. So well done to all of you. Final message from me, I hope you're all well. I miss you all lots. And I'll see you, I think it's Thursday, for another Book Browse session.